What's going on, everyone? Wanted to show you guys my 2018 KTM 500 excf. Want to give you guys some information on what I'm running on it, how I've liked the bike, and just give you guys some information that you guys might be able to utilize for your own bike build out. This bike is a 2018, like I explained, and it is currently sitting at 2,700 miles with 100 hours on it. Now this bike was completely built out as you see it, minus a couple small little maybe changes that I've done to it right as it was brand new. And some people might think that that's a little crazy, but just give you a little bit of understanding of why. I used to have a 2015 KTM 500 EXC, and I really loved the bike. It was built out with a good amount of mods to it, not as much as this bike, but when I bought this bike, I knew exactly what I wanted to do to it, and I wasn't trying to ride it stock. So I was fortunate enough to have everything built out on the bike as you see it, and got to start riding the bike with it all completely modded out for my liking. Again, none of this stuff is anything that you must have, but again, once you start riding these bikes, you start to ask for more performance out of them, or more just to be a little bit more personalized for your liking, and that's where these mods come into handy. So let's start from the cockpit, and I am running a set of flex bars by Fastco, and these bars are really nice to take a lot of the abuse and joltiness out of your arms and whatnot while you're going down the terrain. It also has a BRP submount with a Scott's stabilizer. Now this BRP submount also has some isolators in it as well. So combined with the elastomers that they call them on these flex bars right here, and also the BRP submount, this bike really has very little feedback through the handlebars at all. I'm also running the 50 millimeter riser for the handlebars. The BRP setup is going to add 1 inch of height over factory to your bike handlebars, and then I added the 50 millimeter to give it about a little bit over 1.5 inches, just about 1.5 inches overall rise. For myself, I have a bad back, just an older gentleman, and had some back issues back in the day, and I don't like to hunch over, so I like to be able to stand up and still be able to hold on to the bike, and that 1.5 inch rise makes it really nice for myself. On the controls, basically factory throttle tube, and then I've got the Sick Ass Racing off and on switch that deletes the factory off and on switch. The factory on this bike would have 2 separate switches, so this slim one really cleans it up and makes it a lot nicer. I've also got over on this side the Baja Designs light slim switch as well, which gives me the opportunity to high beam, low beam, and turn off my headlight as well, so that's a good feature. I'm also running the Fastco bar wraps handguards, which this one right here is busted off. Just the reason why this bike is all dirty is because I just got done doing a 2-day ride with the Wolf Enduro guys. It was their Stators and Stars ride up in Big Bear, California. Just from different areas of Big Bear we got to ride, and it was an overnight trip, probably about 130 miles overall. So she's all dusty and dirty and a little beat up, but she's gonna get ready to get tore down and ready and prepped for the next ride, which is a multiple day ride, which I'll give you guys some information on that later. But again, I've got the Fastco bar handguards. Really like those. They've been really working well for me. And then over here, you're gonna probably ask, what is that for? If you haven't seen my videos on YouTube and or on Instagram, I run a navigation on my cell phone. Now, some people get a little corked up over that, and I will tell you that it is not my primary cell phone. That one I keep in my pocket. It is a extra cell phone that I bought off of Craigslist. It was used. It was a small, I want to say it's only like a 64 gig. And basically the way that I run it is I run that phone. It doesn't have any, it's just Wi-Fi only, and you don't need any Wi-Fi or any service. I basically use what's called lead nav, and that system will, be able to let me, see where I'm at. I can download the maps, like the back mapping terrain when I do have Wi-Fi. Otherwise, I'll just use it with a gray screen, and then the tracks that we're recording or riding. So this mount right here is for that phone. I also use a life-proof. I don't know which model it is, but it's a pretty beefy, cover for the phone. The phones are water resistant, but this will help it be a little bit more waterproof, if you want to say. And then I use this Mob Armor cradle. It's got a ball mount on the back, which then I use a little short ram mount arm for it. And I like it up in front of me rather than some of the guys that put them back down here, because I like to stand, or I like to keep my concentration out in front of me with my eyes. And this allows me to look down really easily and see where I'm going. I actually use the mapping, the line where, show me where I'm at quite frequently, just so that I know if there's a turn coming up, and kind of, how much of a turn, is it a sharp turn or a slight turn, and so on. And then I have a lightning cord that basically is fished through my handlebars, and I run back behind my key. Get that a little better there. But right underneath here, there is a cigarette lighter adapter with a USB port. And what I do to keep it pretty water resistant, or water tight, if you want to say, I use like a rubber glove. I cut the finger off of it, and then I run it over. Actually, let me back up first. To help out with the cigarette lighter, the adapter with the USBs on it, I'll put it in, and then I'll wrap kind of like a medical tape around it. I don't use electrical tape; it gets greasy and when it gets hot and stuff. But I'll use like the medical tape, and I'll wrap that cigarette lighter adapter into the cigarette lighter hole, so then that can't pop out. And then I turn around and I plug in the lightning cord, and then I take like a rubber glove finger and cut it off, and then I put it over this side, the larger side, zip tie it, and then the cord I zip tie it there. It helps for two different things. One, obviously with the medical tape, keeps the actual USB adapter consistently connected and not sliding out under the vibration. And then also with it being zip tied here and down on the bottom, that helps for the actual USB not to pull out for whatever reason, let alone no dust or debris gets in there, and or moisture if I'm doing any water crossings. I actually wash the bike exactly like that with the pressure washer. So that's how water resistance that has been. And that has been the exact same USB port, cigarette lighter adapter harness. More than likely I've changed out the lightning cord just because sometimes those go a little funky, but that is the exact same setup that I've been running since this bike's been brand new. And again, reminder, it's got 100 miles on it with 2,700 miles, 100 hours and 2,700 miles. And that's anywhere from California riding all throughout SoCal and Central California, and also Baja. And I've been down in rainy conditions, different places up north and what have you. So it's been working out really well. So I really highly recommend that setup. It's not, you got to be a little bit more keen on what you need to buy to actually make that. Also, speaking of that cigarette lighter is actually, the harness is what's called battery tender. You can find them on Amazon, and it's like a 5 or 6 foot lead that comes off of your battery, and it unplugs and plugs back in. And I have that plug inside my airbox, so then I can, when I'm not using the bike, I can unplug it and don't have any current going through there. I'll try to do a breakdown of everything down in the description down below. For the most part, depending on if this is YouTube or if this is Facebook. And if this is on Instagram, then I'll invite you over to somewhere that you can find that list, or you can contact me and I'll help you, just kind of give you an idea of where you can buy that from. Now, after the cockpit on the handlebar setup and controls, I think I did forget something here. I've got these levers right here that I got off of Rocky Mountain UTV. They were not too expensive, pretty nice. and they work really well. I just like them just because they have a little bit more adjustability to them, and also they flip forward as well. I mean, as you can see, they've barely ever had any type of carnage on the ground or hitting rocks and whatnot. So, you know, once you have these guards, take pretty much the major abuse. So I'm actually got a new set of those that are going on the bike before my next ride. The other cool thing on this front, I'll move over to the front mask, is this is a factory mask, but like some of you guys have known, when you upgrade your headlight, I've got the Baja Designs XL80. That, when you mount it to this front mask, those original factory straps, they just don't really provide a good mounting position. They mount to the tubes, fork tubes, but like they move around and what have you, and it basically is just not stout and firm. So this right here, this is a new bracket that I got from Moto Mind It. I think it's called the V2 mount, and basically what that does, it does double duty as a base mount for your mask to your tubes, nice and stout, and also has, I don't know if you can kind of see it back there, but this plate right here, it also has, it's like a whole plate system that gives you a mounting position for all the wiring underneath your mask. So that helps clean up the wiring, so it's not just all dangling there and rubbing against each other and what have you. You can go to MotoMind It, I believe motomindit.com, and check out that actual mount in a little bit more in depth, but I highly recommend it. And then obviously, if some of you guys are familiar with these Baja Designs XL80s, this mount that is behind it, that's holding the actual light, is not the Baja Designs. Again, that's made by Moto Mind It. The feature that allows different compared to the factory Baja Designs plate is that it's pushed out like a little bit forward more than what the Baja Designs is, and then it also allows you for adjustability, you know, up or down, and you can actually have it set up to where it's not like overly tight, and then you can move it while you're riding, but still nice, stays nice. It's got like a set screw on it to keep it nice and firm. So that is another upgrade that, not alone the light is just awesome, but I like running the Moto Mind It stuff just because it helps out just keep everything nice and tight and gives me full adjustability for the, you know, feature that light puts out. And what have you. So that's pretty cool. They've got a bunch of other items. They got a dash and a couple other things. I'm not running it. Nothing in particular about it. I just never upgraded it to it. It was something that they came out with after I built this bike, and I just honestly haven't ordered one. So you might want to look at that too as well. Talking about more on the front end, I am running the TBT suspension. I want to say they are calling it a Desert Caddy setup. That is what they do with these front fork tubes. It's just their little keen, if you want to say the way that they build it out, they call it a Desert Caddy. It's fully rebuilt front forks and rear shock. I've got new springs in it, new shimming and for the valves and oil. Everything's been all redone to fit my rider weight and also the way that I ride, where I ride. So that was all recommended and set up by TBT Suspension. I will tell you, so far, it's been great, and I had it serviced at 2,000 miles. It was just something on my side that I started feeling that it was maybe a little bit more, not as much resistance, and I had 2,000 miles on the bike, so I just had them redo it about 700 miles ago. Freshen up the whole front forks and the rear shock as well. So TBT Suspension knows what's going on with these bikes. They do a lot of racing off-road wise, and that includes desert and what have you. So depending on what you're trying to set your bike up with, they have different setups. And what I'm running is the Desert Caddy, which is a good all-around trail bike, as in like single track, 2-track, and high-speed desert. So that's kind of riding I like to do. So if you want to talk to them about suspension, let them know that you're looking at their Desert Caddy and then setting it up exactly how you want it for your, not how you want it, but for your weight and what have you. Down at the bottom here, I'm running these Discover Enduro lower fork guards. They're on both sides. And you can see it's got some abuse to them. So obviously if they weren't there, then that would be the lower fork tubes, or fork arms, fork legs if you want to call them. That would be getting all damaged, so I have those on there. Front tire, I'm currently running Maxxis tires. Up in front, I'm running the Maxxis SI. It is a softer tire. I believe it's more of a motocross tire, but I like running it on all the terrain that I ride on. It is a 90-121, so it provides a lot of traction up front. I really dig it. And inside, I am running the Nitro Moose bibs, and those are another nice feature that you don't ever have to check your tire pressure. Definitely you need to service them and keep them lubed and everything, but the best thing is that you're never going to be stuck on the side of the trail with a flat. So no one likes to do that, fixing flats, what have you. We'll move on to the radiators. Bulletproof design. Guards in blue. Pretty straightforward. I think pretty much anyone can see the value in some guards like that. Save your radiators. A Serbies front skid plate. And I'll tell you, I ran a factory skid plate and lost it a couple times. Not on this bike, but on previous bike. I ran a couple other designs, and after the other designs that I've ran, so far, I'm actually really liking this Serbies one. It's pretty straightforward. You can get them pretty much anywhere. I think this one came from Rocky Mountain, and it just works really well. Provides the protection that I need, and it's not real noisy or any of that stuff. Since we're down here, I'll show you my sweet FMF Mega Bomb. Got my hands on pretty much one of the first ones that was out on the market, and she's been doing really well, except for the last couple of rides. She's got some love, some rock love, some on the side of it. So, oh well, that's what happens when these bikes get ridden. They get some damage. Side case cover. Got Trail Jammer design side case for the clutch side and the stator side. This thing's taken the abuse, and if that wasn't there, then more than likely that damage right there would have gone through my side case and probably left me on the side of the trail. Tusk shifter, and I've got the brake lever on the other side. I've got IMS pegs. Can't remember what edition these pegs are, but man, over factory I felt a huge difference. Just the way that they feel, a better platform, just feel really nice riding this bike. Let's get back up to the top here. IMS 3.2, 3.2 gallon tank, and I opted. A lot of people ask me like, "Where's my vent tube? Where's my vent tube?" Well, on this purchase, I opted to go with the cap that can be swapped over to a dump can. So right now it's got the screw cap on it, but it can actually be swapped over to a dump can. So that's why I don't have a breather tube off my cap. It's actually right here on the side. Seat Concepts comfort seat. And forgive me, I don't remember exactly what edition this cover is for this like pattern and material, but I've had, let's see here. This is a third style that I've tried, and so far I'm digging this one. The traditional style that's kind of got like the carbon on the side and suede kind of material up top. Again, forgive me if that's, I don't know what it is exactly, but that one's pretty good. I went to the full gripper, which is this material right here, and then it's also got some like round rubber material on the siding. That one grips the hell out of your ass, but for the style of riding that I do, it was too much. It like almost wanted to tear my pants off. It just wasn't as comfortable, so I went back to this version seat, and it's got these ribs on it which make it really nice for traction with my pants, to where I'm not like sliding off the back, but it still feels really nice. So this one I'm really digging. I think it's called like the 2.0 or something like that. You can go on their website and see what what they say for it. But Seat Concepts definitely have these seats dialed in for these bikes, dual sport bikes. I will not build a bike without a Seat Concept seat. I won't build a bike without a lot of these upgrades now that I really am a firm believer of them. But definitely Seat Concepts is one of those parts. Obviously got the titanium T4, I believe it is, with the carbon fiber tip. She's looking used and abused right now. Definitely ride this bike. She doesn't sit in the garage. Well, she sits in the garage in between the rides, but stuff happens, and I'm not gonna say that I'm the most, my most aggressive like enduro crazy rider or anything like that. I'm an older gentleman. I'm 40-something years old, but I like to go out and have some fun, and if it involves beating up my bike a little bit, so be it. I learn from mistakes and bobbles, and I progress. So it's just nature of the beast. And right there, this slip-on is definitely feeling harmed up, but we'll get a refreshy at some point here. Let's see, we've got on the back swing arm the factory KTM plastic guards. These things are awesome. I used them on my last bike, and this bike I used them, so just straightforward. It's a guard, so you don't scratch it all up. Another bulletproof design, shark fin. That thing is definitely worth its own weight. You can see it's just completely gashed up and been rubbed, drug, everything else in between over these rocks that I go on. And again, the terrain that I ride on is mostly like desert stuff, and or I'll get into like single track and rocky sections, and challenge myself. In the rear, it is a Maxxis 120/118, and this is the IT. It is not the Desert IT. I used to run the Desert IT, but it is hard. It is more catered to a guy that is running a tube, and since I'm running nitro moose bibs in the back, I decided to drop down to just an IT and run a little bit softer tire. Same tread pattern and everything, but sidewall stiffness. This is less than the Desert IT, and so far so good. Provides great traction all around. I think I'm going to start trying out a couple other tires that are on the market that are newer. A lot more people have been talking about, but so far I'm definitely not disregarding. I mean, I've used these tires multiple times and love them. So on the back sprocket, I'm running a DDC sprocket, 48 in the rear, 14 up front, so a 1448, running an O-ring chain, something that I just picked up from like Rocky Mountain or whatever. But the DDC sprockets, I got those from DDC Direct. Really great guy to work with. Let's see what else. Show you real quick here. We talked about IMS pegs over on the other side, and here they are on this side. And again, Tusk shifter on this side, and the Tusk. So here's a perfect example of what maybe I should be telling you about these Tusk levers. So trail jammer on the stator side, and you see there's a big old gash there, and that is from my Tusk lever, shift lever getting bent. So I will tell you that those levers, they're economical, they look good, but I think I'm gonna try something different. Maybe upgrade to Hammerhead or one of the other companies. I think there is another third company that's making them. I had Hammerheads on a previous bike build, had no issues with them, so I might be trying those back on this bike, because obviously I'm getting some flexing on that shift lever that I shouldn't be getting. So IMS tank, I'll show you on this tank. So when you buy a tank, for guys that are new to this, when you buy a tank, you have to buy the little elbow that comes out of the tank, because your factory will not work. The tank thickness is different. So with that said, you can either buy the 90 degree, like I have here, or you buy and this is the more expensive one, or you can buy the one that comes straight out and then your line's gonna loop back and like this. Well, at first, saving $40, $50 might seem like no big deal, but I will tell you that I did on this bike specifically, I did have the one that comes straight out. And in my first rides earlier last year, when I had first picked this bike up and started riding it finally, between it coming straight out and being exposed to tree branches and just everything else in between, getting caught up on it. Plus, I will also add that the factory hose, you just need to replace that straight out of the gate. I had issues with it drying and cracking. On the side of the trail, I had twice it start basically pissing out fuel from a crack. Now, I don't know if it was because it was looped around, but it wasn't a harsh angle, or it was just the actual rubber itself. But I actually went down to the automotive store and just got some high pressure fuel line and just and then I upgraded back to the actual 90 degree like I should have in the beginning. So that's just a little bit of advice from myself. I think we'll go back over to this other side here, and I'll mention that TBD suspension on, I don't know if you can see it or not, probably can't. Oh yeah, so the bladder's been replaced out. TBT has a bladder setup that they use. Apparently these factory bladders, the sleeve that's inside of them, they jam up, they kind of swell and jam up, and they don't allow for smooth transition through the stroke of the bladder, so it jams up and starts giving you a little bit of an inconsistent feeling with the rear shock. And we upgraded to the TBT bladder setup, so that was involved also into the price. Let's point out some obvious things here for a dual sport rider. I have no mirrors. I don't run mirrors. I don't run turn signals. If you notice, there's no turn signals on the bike in the front. In the rear, I attempted to try to look like I had turn signals, but I went with the sick-ass racing ones, and they're great. But for the style of riding that I'm doing, they didn't last. So I'm not running turn signals. I'm not running mirrors. I will be 100% honest so I don't get people wound up. I do not ride this bike on the street. It is street legal. Let me rephrase it. I don't ride this bike on the street for pleasure, as in going to the store, around town, or any of that stuff. This bike is plated strictly for the reason that when I'm out doing long rides, whether I'm out in the desert or I'm out in the forest or just anywhere, that I am capable of getting on the highway on a public road, not even just highway, but a public road that requires to have a plate, and I can connect my different routes. I can go into town to have lunch. I can go into town to get gas. I can go into town because I have a problem and I need to get into safety, like going back to my vehicle or whatever have you. That is why I have a plated bike. So let's not get that all twisted up and people say things. Yes, I'm illegal technically when I hit the street because I don't have turn signals and I don't have mirrors. Okay, so some of the other stuff that you can't really see on the bike that I'll tell you that I have. The bike is also desmogged and all the smog has been removed. And it also is running a tuner. So the tuner is changing the parameters to compensate for the exhaust, for the desmog. It also has the reeds taken out of the airbox, so it is increased intake flow, and the tuner helps me out with all that stuff. I think that's pretty much everything in a nutshell on what's done to this bike. I might have missed a couple small little things, but if there's anything in particular, you can feel free to ask. Let's go over a couple of the things, my experience with the bike. So bike was brand new, got it in April of last year, 2018. And the first time I got to ride the bike, once it was completed, was in June. I want to say mid-June, And also there's like someone that I need to recognize within this video as well. I do a lot of the work to my bikes for the most part, but on this bike build, I was just basically needing help getting this bike built. I was still riding my other past bike and had a lot of stuff going on with some rides and everything. So I actually connected with Mad Jack Racing out of Moore Park, California. And shortly after receiving the bike brand new, I dropped it off with them, and they held on to the bike while I collected up all the parts and shipped it to them, or they purchased them, and they built the bike out and did what's called their factory new purchase service, which means, again, might be mistaken or some things that might have changed, but they do like basically tear the whole bike down, swing arm, take all the wheels off, and you know, the linkages, any of the throttle cables, throttle linkage, throttle cable, you know, levers, and they basically re-lube everything for the most part of like what a factory brand new bike should be done. To a certain degree, they only do X amount of work to the bikes at the dealership, and Mad Jack Racing has a process, a checklist that they go through and basically re-grease everything. So this whole bike, the whole headset was pulled apart, and I think I said the swing arm and all that stuff too. So that was just what I had. I had them do just because I felt more comfortable with that process, and handing it off to them just because I was busy. And honestly, I probably myself, I won't lie, I would have never gone that far into it just because I never have in the past. So it was a suggestion on their part, and I went ahead and let them do it. So Mad Jack Racing built the bike initially. Since then, they've serviced it a couple times for me, and or I pretty much handle maintenance on the bike. So let's go over some of the things that I have had an issue with. So pretty transparent here. Again, if it's broken or not done me a positive of basically I've had a problem with it, I think it's owed to tell people about it. So the bike was brand new. First ride out was actually a year ago for the Staters and Stars Wolf Enduro ride, and everything was great. Bike was coming up on 200 miles, and our night ride in the middle of the night, the factory battery basically took a dump on me and left me stranded, and wouldn't even jump. The battery just completely fried, and it was a factory battery, so I had to get towed back to camp. That was a bummer. In January of 2019, January I want to say, I went on a desert ride from Barstow to Ridgecrest, I believe it was, and back. And on the first day of riding, for whatever reason, this switch right here went out on me. It would not allow the bike to start. It was basically, it wouldn't fire the fuel pump or anything like that. We didn't know what was going on the side of the trail. And come to find out the next morning, I found out that this button had got corroded inside and basically was stuck on kill, which basically when you turn the key on, if this is stuck on kill, act like as in you're holding it down, it kills the fuel pump. So the fuel pump wasn't even kicking on. We opened it up, cleaned it out. I got to ride day 2, but this switch failed. I've since got a replacement, have not had an issue with it. Other than that, those are pretty much the 2 things that I've been plagued with on this bike. This bike's been down to Mexico on a multiple day ride. I want to say we did 4 days in Mexico, 600 miles, and remote riding. Very, very little chase support, and this bike has treated me well down there. I've been down to Mexico a few times with this bike and no issues with it. Been out to the desert, been in the woods, and the bike has performed great. I love this bike. I'm sure there's other great bikes out there, but right now this is my jam. This bike, these KTMs are definitely making me proud and happy, and my money's been well spent. So I hope that kind of helps people out. I know when I was looking to purchase my first KTM and I didn't know where to turn to, I looked all around on YouTube and anywhere else that I could find. Obviously there's a lot of forums and groups and stuff like that on Facebook, or people that are advocating different, you know, things that are on the bikes and everything. But I will tell you, I wanted to come to you guys not with this bike sitting here nice and pretty and brand new and never been rode before and looking all just completely, you know, fresh and brand new. This bike is tore up. It's got 2,700 miles on it, 100 hours. And, you know, I tried explaining, I think, to someone, you know, someone's like, oh, you know, well, what do you, I mean, it's all beat up. I mean, are you happy with it? Yeah, 100% happy with it. Whatever it needs to be replaced, we'll fix it. We'll keep it running and service it. It's no different than changing the oil than having to change the slip-on because it's all beat up. It's a service item in theory, in my opinion, because I went out, I rode it, I enjoyed it, and I had fun with buddies and myself, or possibly my son, because I do ride a lot with my son. And those are all memories that are part of the servicing that I need to do with this bike because it's gotten beat up on those rides. So to anyone that's out there, good luck with your bike build. You got questions, let me know if I can possibly answer them and give you guys suggestions. And again, shout out to some great companies that are on this bike that are definitely providing some good memories for myself and keeping me, you know, riding on the trail and not, you know, failing on me. So any of these companies that are on this bike, and you see them on my graphics, I've had, you know, some sort of, you know, contact with them and communication, and we talk frequently, and I just praise them because I run their logos because I'm proud of, you know, having them on my bike. So again, just another avid user wanting to share the Stoke with you guys. If you guys got any questions, hit me up, let me know. But I hope this already pretty much answered everything, and we'll continue on trying to make some of these videos and helping everyone out. All right, guys, thanks.